members. We have Mr. Donatus. It's good to have you here today as well. And Mr. I got you. Oh, Wayne Sword. Good to have you here, sir, as well. And I'm going to, Ms. Charity, are you making a roll call for me?
I'm going to let Candace do that.
Candace, where's Candace?
Right here.
There you are.
Commissioner Pritchett,
Here.
Vice Chair Andrea Young,
Here.
Mayor Rob Medina,
Present?
Donnie Leonatus. Giles Malone,
Present.
Wayne Sword,
Here.
and Keith Winston.
Here.
Did we have anybody online? We're good?
We have Carrie Ferrara, Angela Essing. Do you want me to list the people in the audience?
No, ma'am. I'm just trying to get the board members. Thank you so much. All right, we have a quorum. We're calling the meeting to order, and we need an approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any conflicts they need to disclose at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward. And, sir, do we need an approval of the tourist act? We do. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Director's report, Mr. Kranis, you're on, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things in here this month. All of our STR reports. We continue to lead the peer set on room night demand. We're, so far, year to date, we're tracking 17%. So room night demand is a number that I keep bringing up at these meetings because I think it's an important number. Next to tourist development tax collections, I'd say room night demand is the next most important because that's the number of rooms that we have rented. So that's a very positive, and we're tracking extremely well against our peer set. On our revenue report, which is on page 54, I'm just going to point out we don't have full year-end numbers yet. We're waiting for a couple of outstanding invoices. Those will get trued up probably in the next month or so. We do have a couple of outstanding invoices that the finance department will then debit against last year. But overall, we were pretty much on track budget-wise, so I think we're in good shape there. Also in your report, tourist development tax collections have August. I'm waiting for September. We should have that in the next week or so. Anticipating that tax collections for September will probably come in somewhere between 1.5 and 1.6 million, which would put us at a year-end total of over 23 million, which is quite incredible considering, we were at 17 million last year. And, we kept talking about, are we going to break 20 or not? And here we are talking now about topping 23 million. It's about a 35% increase. Some of that you could say, well, we had, some new room inventory. You could say ADR was higher this past year, but none of that gets you to 35%. So I think it's just, a sign that Brevard's in a good position. Space Coast is doing extremely well from a hotel perspective and from a lodging perspective, and that certainly bodes well for tourism overall. Also in your report, just a couple of other reports that I included, actually would have been in last month, but on page 57, I have our annual USSSA report. That's the final report. I also put the previous 2 years in there just so you could see the audit that was done. That was previously approved earlier this year, but I just included it so you could have it. Certainly willing to answer any questions about that. And then there's a new report that we provide to the board as the TDC. Just gives basically some high-level, it's on page 80, it gives you some high-level goals and accomplishments as well as the attendance for the committee for the year. So that is all in your report. Again, I'm open to answer any questions, but if not, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions for Mr. Kranis? All right, we will move into the committee reports. Charity, I think you are on this time, right? All right, wonderful.
John, can you help? Is it on that computer, Candace?
No.
Yeah, it's on this computer. Oh, I can see her mouse moving. No, they got it. They got it. No. I gotcha. Candace is trying to get the note together. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. For those who are new, my name is Charity Stewart. I am the marketing manager for the Space Coast Office of Tourism. So usually we give a brief update on our last marketing committee meeting and just bring everybody up to speed on where our efforts are currently. So that is my plan for you today. So the first thing is a quick overview. We do have the largest fall campaign we've ever done before running right now. It's about $1.5 million. It's our major advertising campaign, and it is focused here within the state of Florida, but also in our southeast major markets, our fly drive markets such as Atlanta and Charlotte, and then our major markets, New York, Chicago, D.C., and Philadelphia. So that had a staggered rollout here at the beginning of the month and is off to a very strong start. In addition to our major campaign, we also have a supplementary cruise campaign running. And this campaign really focuses on encouraging travelers who are looking at cruise type information online and showcasing cruise behaviors and encouraging them to take a vacation before their vacation and stay here a few days before they embark on the ship. And then lastly, we know that the fall is a great time for getaways if you are especially within a few hours of our destination. So we have 2 different content campaigns running through our website, social media, and email. The first one is Fall is for Foodies, and it is just highlighting the amazing culinary destination that we have here throughout the county. So if you follow along on social media or on our website, you will see throughout the next 2.5 months all types of amazing dishes and restaurants and chefs showcased. We're bringing in multiple content creators from the area who are known for their food online presence to share that excitement and tying that to weekend-long itineraries. And it's really focused within 2 to 3 hours of the Space Coast. And then also our fall event campaign. So I don't know if you guys have looked at the calendar lately, but if you want something to do, the Space Coast is the place to do it in the fall. Our calendars are full of very cool events that happen here, very unique events, and you throw in a rocket launch and you pretty much have, the best weekend out there. So we also have these campaigns running to target those individuals who can make a quick trip over for the weekend, have a great dish, take on a really good event, and then go home for the work week. This year, we've also started back up our international campaigns. So our UK representative, Roxana, is up and running. She already has a very busy calendar, meeting with different agents and travel and tour operators, plus working through Brand USA to get our UK and Canada advertising programs up and running. It's just about snowbird season for them. And then, of course, working with Sunwing, who announced recently their direct flights into Melbourne. So working with them to try to fill those planes and get those folks in here. And as a refresh, or, new for some folks who haven't seen it, our creative this last year has been the idea of plus space, taking things that maybe any destination could have, and adding what makes it absolutely amazing here, which is the fact that you can experience it along with the space component. So these have been performing very, very well, as Peter alluded to with the TDT numbers. And we track these online as well. So we've refreshed them with fall messaging. And these are just a sample. For anybody who knows anything about how advertising campaigns get built out, you know, these might have dozens of different iterations and sizes, and some of them move, and they're displayed depending on the types of behavior and things you're searching for. So they're very dynamic, but I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of where we're at. These are the cruise banners. So I talked about this idea of the take a vacation before your vacation. So these have been, it's a really unique idea, the idea of putting that gangplank right there in the image and carrying your luggage, you know, right there onto your next activity. They've been really fun to watch the performance online. They look very different from anything that's out there, so they really do a good job of capturing your attention. And in addition to that, you know, we work with media, both regionally, nationally, internationally, but also content creators who have established brands online who inform their audiences on very specific travel-related items. In this particular case, one of the things we've been working on this year with our cruise campaigns are bringing in content creators and social media influencers who work a lot with cruise lines and who do a lot of cruising. So most recently, a few weeks ago, we had this wonderful couple called Sometimes Sailing. That's their online brand. They put together really great travel itineraries for people who are looking to cruise. And they stayed up at the Courtyard Marriott. They could not stop talking about how amazing their room was with the space elements. That's what we love. And so they've put together actually 3 guides, which was exceeding what they had initially delivered for us on all of the different things to do in our area before you embark on a cruise. So just another really great online hit for us. And then during Hurricane Ian, of course, the zoo helped to respond to some baby sea turtles that had lost their way. And so we worked with People Magazine, Fox News, and helped coordinate some interviews on just the ways that, we could help some of our neighbors who had been so significantly impacted by that storm. You will soon see, as you're traveling along I-75 and I-95 and I-4, new billboards. So this is one board that's already installed. It's down in Miami. Something really neat about these boards, they're very dynamic. They come off the board, but they're also lit. So the trail of the rocket launch engines are lit up. The website is lit up. So they're super dynamic. I've gotten just a bunch of emails from folks who have said, hey, we've noticed your billboard. So they've been really well received, very striking. So we used that inspiration to create another suite of them. So again, you're going to see a variety of beach messaging, city messaging, some with those rockets, some that just allude to it, and all of them have that same, come off the board, elements that we can light up. And so we are working on putting those up here over the next probably 5 weeks or so. And these are all in your packet. I know that they're hard to see sometimes up here, but. And then as you come into the county, you see we've got currently 3 boards that welcome you here. So they will also be updated again with the lights and the real striking graphics. So, all right, something else that's slightly new. If you have noticed, we have been using a revised corporate logo, our mark, and color palette. So we updated just a few tiny things. The shuttle we replaced with the more recognizable rocket shape. And then the elements inside the waves, we kind of cleaned them up a little bit to make it easier to read on the smaller format. And then our Sports Commission and Film Commission logos got updated at the same time along with that. So real minor, you wouldn't notice it probably unless I told you. But and then also we've added just a few colors to our color palette, which you've seen integrated in some of the billboards and cruise ads already. And then finally, we had a great discussion at our last marketing committee talking ahead to what does next year look like. Again, as I mentioned, those ads are performing really well. We look at them on a very regular basis to see what optimizations that we can make. So we want to look at how do we expand the life of those, but also put into rotation for those people who have maybe seen some of those ads already, some additional concepts that complement that plus space idea. I want to mention that what I'm about to show you are not ads. These are concept designs solely used for the purpose of laying out an idea visually that allowed us to talk about it. But I wanted you guys to see kind of the direction we were talking about. So this direction plays off the excitement of a countdown, right? We as people look forward to counting down to things. I don't know about you guys, but I have friends who put countdown apps on their phones, count down to their next vacation, right? We count down to major milestones, graduations, weddings, honeymoons, all the things. But we also here on the Space Coast count down to rocket launches. So it's a really subtle complement to that plus space that we can tie in maybe this idea of countdowns to this amazing vacation that could also include that space element while you're sitting there out on the beach or out in a kayak, during bioluminescence. So there's a lot of ways to play around with this idea. And again, it really just complements that plus space idea. There's some discussion about maybe there's a way to automate this. As we all know who deal with launch countdowns, that's a unique challenge, but we'll see where it takes us. And then with that, we'll also create social media, videos, and whatnot, and build it out. So that's, again, the direction that we've been talking about for next year as we expand on and rotate in some new ideas. And that is all I had from a marketing standpoint, unless anybody has any questions or if I missed anything from the meeting, Keith.
I just wanted to comment, I think a lot of you are aware that the EDC is doing a community branding effort, which is looking really different audience for how do we sell it as a place to live, work, raise a family. And I just think it's interesting because we've been having this conversation for probably 20 years about how to do it, and Space Coast is often where we land because space is our distinguisher, but they're looking at slightly broader. I know you guys are involved as staff, but just so everyone in the TDC understands, you're looking at two from a little different perspective. It'll be very interesting to see where they land, as space is not the sole unique signifier. I think they want to, that doesn't appeal to everyone. And interesting, I never thought about it. If you're not in the space industry, people who worked in other industries actually felt a little resentful that space was the only thing. For tourists, it makes sense. And tourism only came up once in the industry thing, so we might want to share them. I don't know what tourism is in terms of our overall industry, but we probably got to communicate to them it's one of the more significant ones here. So just a heads up for people who aren't aware of that.
I'm sorry, ma'am, if you put in a public comment card, I could do it that way.
Oh, it's over at the.
So, Mr. Malone, did you want to say something? You had a look. So.
Yeah, I'm on that board, on the EDC board. Branding, I think, is excellent. And Peter, I know you're heavily involved in it. I think it's a really good timing, and some great people involved. So I think it's going to be a really good way for us to stay ahead of the curve.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment on the same thing. Angela from the EDC came to our Space Coast League of Cities dinners this month. She had 3 minutes to speak, and she came up and she spoke all about branding. And I did not know that she was already working with TDC. So I got with her afterwards, and in the meantime, I pulled up the website, and I see our logo there. So I understand that she is working with TDC, excuse me, and I have an appointment with her next week to work to see what we can do as far as branding to try to get the south part of the county in here as well. Palm Bay, the greatest city in the county.
Second.
Mayor, I didn't want to leave that out. And West Melbourne, the other greatest city in the county, and some of the other places that we haven't really, don't have a lot of focus on. So maybe we can include them as well. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for commenting on it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I might, I just add in, Linda Weatherman came to us a few months back and was talking about this idea of a community brand, and it's something Orlando went through in recent years, and so I was familiar with the process, and it doesn't make sense to try to come up with a community brand without the tourism office being part of that discussion, because we're the ones with the marketing dollars that ultimately push out, the messaging. But their message is quite a bit different, as Keith alluded to. It's more about us having a great place to live, work, and play, and it's really about workforce attraction, right? It's going after key segments, key industry segments that are really in need right now. I think what's happening in the aerospace and the space industry is a lot of workers are sort of being shuffled around from organization to organization within the county, but we need to get some fresh blood in and new people that, can come in and bring their ideas and energy to the destination. So it's an important initiative. I don't know that it necessarily tracks exactly with what we're doing, but I wanted us to have a seat at the table so that they don't come up with some branding idea that's out of left field and doesn't match what we're messaging out there to the visiting audience. So it's an interesting initiative, but again, it's not necessarily going to drive what we do from a marketing perspective. We just want to be part of that discussion. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Kranis, is this the full aggregate of what we're using right now for marketing? Is there other items that we're using as well, or is this the
There's
packet we're
TV
using?
commercials that we've had for probably about a year now. There's a
Okay.
number of different ads. I think this was just a sampling of
Okay.
some of the.
So this isn't the full aggregate of what we're doing for marketing as far as ads and billboards? There's other ones as well?
Yes, as far as creative, there's multiple different versions. Some of the digital ads that are only this big, they don't
Right.
translate well on a paper.
Gotcha. I think just for the sake of new people that are going to be coming on, if others do, that maybe we could send those out so that all the board members can have those, because I'm thinking that we're getting a little bit more variety right now, so I'm thinking it'd be a good time for the members to bring their expertise. I'm sure you have some different ideas maybe you could bring as far as what you think might be imperative for the visitor center. Mr. Donatus, I know you're going to have a whole nother thing as far as the sports input. I know Mr. Malone has done great through the years of bringing his expertise in, as well as the marketing things that he does and the events that he brings. So I think that might be good for us to have, ma'am, if that would be all right, so that it's just good to have good wineskins, new wineskins once in a while, and to think outside the box. That's all I wanted to bring up, sir, that might be good for us.
Yeah, and yes, ma'am, we could put a full deck together that's comprehensive, and we can also then maybe put it on the agenda for a quick discussion and review at the next month's meeting, if that's
Wonderful.
okay.
And I know the mayor of Palm Bay is going to want more Palm Bay stuff, I'm sure. So, Miss Kathy, would you like to come up and take a few minutes and speak? Come up to the mic.
Kathy Angeron with Brevard Cultural Alliance, and to the point of the Community of Choice TDC initiative, I just wanted to share that. I'm sorry. To that point, the TDC also reached out to Brevard Cultural Alliance and wanted to have a focus group with our board, which we did. And just a side note, tourism actually figured quite prominently in the discussion. They do, sticky notes, and people just jot down ideas. They break you out into groups, and tourism did feature quite prominently in our conversation. So just a side note.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Kranis, did we have anyone that you wanted to have speak on Capitol facilities, sir?
No, just a quick update. Of course, we had our last Capitol Facilities Committee meeting a few months back, and the recommendation came through on 2 projects that came here to the TDC and then got approved by the board. Congratulations to the aquarium. Got additional $5 million, so it's a $15 million contribution from the TDC now. And then Valiant Air Command was awarded $750,000 in their project. So congratulations to both of those.
Thank you, sir. And I believe now you have Mr. Mike, you're going to talk on beach improvements?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody, and I did not have an advance report, but just for your awareness, on your desk, I left a copy of a agenda report that went to the Board of County Commissioners yesterday, and the board approved that item due to the timing of building hurricane response projects before next turtle season. We went straight to the Board of County Commissioners because in order to bid the job and get it built by April, it's a big task. But in some, Hurricane Ian, while we were fortunate, it didn't strike us nearly as hard as it did in Southwest Florida. Our coastline did take a bit of a beating. And I just by chance was at a meeting this morning with someone from South Melbourne Beach, and they host a commercial weather station. And he pointed out that in Melbourne, south end of Melbourne Beach, they had hours of 60-mile-an-hour winds with one gust over 80. So we did see some significant weather, even though compared to our poor friends in Southwest Florida, we got off lucky. So in the South Beaches project, which is the southern 14 miles of Brevard County, that is a project the Tourism Development Council and the Board of County Commissioners, we've maintained with state partnership and occasional help from FEMA, but the Army Corps of Engineers has never helped us with the beach projects down there. But for the last over 15 years, we've maintained that shoreline, with what we call engineered dune projects, and it's maintenance of that project, which was damaged by Ian, which we took to the Board of County Commissioners. It'll be on the order of an $8.5 million repair project. So the projects are expensive. I've, talked to you about that many times, but given the impact of tourism and the beaches are our biggest asset, it's worth the investment. Based on past experience, we have been declared, the county has been declared FEMA eligible for Hurricane Ian response and repairs. And I never count chickens before they're hatched, but based on past experience, that project has been deemed FEMA eligible. We go through the process. It takes some time. So immediately, out of the Tourism Development Beach Fund, we're going to be spending on the order of $8.5 million. It's our hope that over a year or two of working with FEMA, we should get on the order of 87% of that back. So it's an enormous investment now to protect that shoreline, but working with our federal partners that we have in the past, we're hopeful to get FEMA and state assistance. Historically, I just sort of worked through the numbers, and in these engineered dune projects, those are the ones the Army Corps hasn't been involved with. Over time, the county has paid about 15% of the overall construction cost for those projects. So even though it's a big investment now, if history is any indication, we should be on that same roughly 15% or so investment. So that's the South Beaches. In the material I passed out, you'll find a few photographs. The South Beaches are also an area called it's part of the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, which is important for turtle nesting. And thankfully, the turtles over the last several years, nesting success on our engineered dunes has been as good as in any native dunes left down there. So there's a few pictures in your package just to let you know the worst of it. Not all of the shoreline looks as bad as the photos. Those are some of the worst spots. One of the images in your packet, at least one of those, is a vacation rental. There are other areas in the refuge where the erosion wasn't nearly as severe, but I just wanted you to understand, you might have been to one beach in Brevard County and it didn't look that bad, but there are other areas, especially in the South Beaches, that got hit significantly. So that was the action approved by the Board of County Commissioners yesterday. We are also pursuing on our federal projects. We've got Army Corps projects in the Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral area, Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor, and then Indy Atlantic and Melbourne Beach, the towns. Those projects, the day after the storm, the week after, we gave the Army Corps a letter they request to formally request they look into hurricane damages. They're in the middle of evaluating that now. Those projects are big enough that the losses don't look severe, but they may add up to significant dollars, and we want the Corps to look into that so that if there's hurricane response money provided to the Army Corps of Engineers, that the appropriate amount will be invested in Brevard County. And for the mid-reach, which is our project in Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor, the Army Corps, we already plan to nourish it starting about a year from now in November of '23. And the storm took a pretty good bite out of the shoreline there. So by putting this Corps letter in, we may end up with a higher than typical federal cost share in that nourishment that is undertaken about a year from now. So we're working on that. And to that regard, we worked immediately with Congressman Posey's office, his staff, and the congressman himself. They're very familiar with these projects and how much they benefit Brevard County. So the week after the storm, the congressman was gracious enough to send a letter to the Assistant Secretary of the Army, who manages the Army Corps, to make sure, you know, we were pointing out the needs of Brevard County, and also to the Appropriations Committee chair in Washington to make sure if it comes time for a Hurricane Ian supplemental package in Washington, that they know Brevard County is there and what we may need. And to that regard, Senator Rubio has a draft Hurricane Ian appropriations package that he announced a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and we're working with our contacts in DC to make sure if that appropriations package comes together, Brevard County will get the appropriate share to repair our federal projects. So working hard on hurricane response and taking care of your beaches for tourists and turtles and residents alike. So that's it, unless you have questions. Yes.
Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
I just want to, how much do we have in the beach funds? You said this is 8.5
So
million.
that was going to be what I would address. So what that means from us from a budgetary perspective, the TDC and then consequently the board approved $10 million in our reserves for this current fiscal. We are estimating, based on this $8.5 million number, which, you know, we just got a few weeks ago, we're going to probably have to tap into the reserves by as much as $6 million, which will leave us, you know, with $3 to $4 million. Makes me a little bit nervous going into next hurricane season, frankly, because it's, as you can see, a very minor hit from a major storm can do a lot of damage very quickly. So, you know, that's something that I think we'll bring through the beach committee next year and to this commission to talk about, because, you know, it doesn't take much to drain our funds very quickly. And I know we've talked about that for many years. Mike is always one that is an advocate of putting as much into those reserves as we possibly can. Well, here, this is the reason why. So.
What's the overall percentage of TDC funding that goes to beach?
Total, it's 25%. So it's different percentages of different pennies, but it adds up to be 25% of the total TDT.
So realistically, next year, you're looking at potentially $5 million roughly
Something in
funding.
that, something in that range.
Which won't
right?
cover the-
And we had already allocated the funds. Mike was talking about some other projects that are going on. We have about $8 million in other projects that were already budgeted that we had funds allocated for. So that $5 million can be, you know, directed as appropriate.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Mike, what's the cycle of the accounts receivable from the federal government at this point? How much are we looking at overall, would you say? That they still owe us?
That they still owe us?
In any?
None.
None.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just got
the last bit?
the Irma payments last year.
Okay.
So it took about 4 years to get FEMA, that was through FEMA, so to get those payments back in, it's about $4 million. So, yeah, it's something we'll have to float for a few years, for sure.
And Giles, you've been along, you may remember the Army Corps owed us money for projects way back where we got an expert settlement to get more federal share due to Port Canaveral expenses, and we also managed to get all of that back from the federal government in the last few years. So we're even with them at the moment.
Okay.
Mr. McCreary, just for clarification, would you go ahead and let us know which areas are in South Beach and which areas are in the mid-reach so that everybody can know which areas work?
Yes,
Considering-
ma'am. I'd be glad to, and I'll, just for simplicity, I'll start with our beach projects from north to south. And we have a North Reach project, which is an Army Corps project initially built in 2001 and maintained since. That's about 10 miles of shoreline between Port Canaveral and Patrick Air Force Base. Then the Air Force manages their shoreline themselves, but I'd like to note that the Air Force has determined beach nourishment is the most economical and environmentally acceptable means to protect their base assets. So the Air Force Base nourishes their beach also to protect their base assets, and visitors use it also. South of the Air Force Base is a project we call the Mid-Reach Project. It's about 7.8 miles long from Piney to Causeway, south almost to Indian Atlantic. It includes Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor Beach, and a couple of miles of unincorporated county also. Then we have our South Reach. The Mid-Reach is also Army Corps. The South Reach Project, Reach with an R, is an Army Corps project. It's about 4 miles long, and it runs from just the north edge of the town of Indian Atlantic, just north of there, the Blueberry Muffin Restaurant, for those of you who like a good breakfast, south to Spessart Holland Park. That's just shy of 4 miles long, and it was initially constructed in 2002 and maintained since. Most recently, that was maintained 2 years ago, and it's a high-volume project, so it could take a blow from Ian, and even though there's losses, it doesn't look dramatic. And then finally, south of Spessart Holland Park, down to Sebastian Inlet State Park, is an area we call the South Beaches, and that's about 14 miles of the county. It's all unincorporated. It's largely residential. There's a significant portion of parkland and wildlife land because it's part of the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge, and that's the area we've protected since 2005 with these engineered dune projects, we call them. They're very small-scale beach projects to sort of hold the line, keep the ocean from eating parks and infrastructure, but it's not building a giant wide beach. It's sort of a minimum scale beach restoration effort, and that's the one that FEMA has helped us in certain times over the years.
Thank you, sir. You certainly come with a lot of wisdom and memory.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for the gentleman? All right, thank
Thank
you. Wonderful report. We're going to move into, did you have anybody for the sports committee, sir?
Nothing from sports, ma'am. We had finished our cycle 2 of our sports grants, which got approved by the board a few meetings back, and we will start up again next year, but right now there's no activity that
Thank
one.
you, sir. Okay, we're going to move into Cultural Committee report, and I think, Ms. Andrea Young, you're going to need a vote on this as well, correct, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
All
I'm
right.
going to need a vote on this. Yes, thank you. In fact, I'm looking for a motion for approvals on the cultural support grant programs that have been recommended for funding by the Cultural Committee on September 15th. I'll be abstaining from one vote, which we'll do separately because I am on that board, so I did not score. So if you look at your last page in your packet, you'll see the list that is there. It is City of Palm Bay for $10,000, the Field Manor Foundation for $10,000, the Melbourne Main Street for $20,000, Titusville Playhouse for $20,000, Space Coast Symphony Orchestra for $20,000. This is the amount of grant that they qualified for based on their score and the amount of out-of-county tourists that they brought in. Looking for a motion.
So I just wanted to clarify something. Being mayor of the greatest city on the face of the earth, I wanted to, should I abstain from this vote because the city will receive $10,000?
I don't think you're getting it personally, correct?
No, that is correct. But I just,
Typically, they voted on city items as well. Has that been how it's handled?
If a member is on the board of an event, they typically have abstained. I don't recall in the case of a municipality, though.
so I'm seeking guidance from our attorney.
It's a little bit of a different conflict analysis too, because it's not going to you directly, or it's the city as a whole. What was the grant specifically?
So this is a grant for a number of events that the city applied for. So they operate several events, and so they'll receive this as part of their event funding.
May I make a comment? The representative for Palm Bay is Julie Moscani. If you look on the last page there, you'll see no score for her, so she did not score the Palm Bay application, seeing as she was the representative.
Madam Chair, I mean, I'm one to support this motion. I don't know if that's going to affect, might be a safer bet to abstain, but I think,
That's
from my
wisdom.
perspective, I plan to support this.
Sure, you may want to abstain for now. I mean, it's something I'd like to look into a little bit more.
Okay,
Not
then.
on the spot, but
Well,
we
that,
can come back to that as well.
well, I appreciate that. I'll be abstaining, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we have I'm sorry, I was stepping in and taking your place. Go ahead. please.
Everybody's being so wonderful. Go ahead.
All right,
We're
so we have a
busy.
motion from
Oh.
Giles Malone and a second from,
Well, it's my understanding, ma'am, and I'm not voting, but I thought once the committee passed this, that was the motion, and I think Mr. Malone seconded that motion.
I think you're right. We've gone through this several times. I think you're right. And
Okay.
again, I apologize for stepping on our wonderful chair here. This is-
No worries at all, ma'am. I always appreciate the help. So we do have a motion by the committee, and we have a second by Mr. Malone. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous with the mayor of the greatest city in Brevard
Does it again.
County. Or maybe the greatest mayor, who knows, abstaining. All right, ma'am, do you need to do the other item as
I do,
well?
yes.
Okay.
Surfside Playhouse, they qualified for $10,000, and I need to abstain from this one. So looking for a second.
Do I have a motion to have a second for the second item?
Why is that different than the first?
Because she's abstaining.
Yeah, I'll make
A second.
Okay, I'm going to give him the second this time in the meeting, the one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous again with Ms. Young abstaining from the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to be moving into board reports. And Mr. Medina, do you have any reports, sir?
Nothing to report other than a comment. Thank you for giving me that brief counsel, Mr. Attorney. But I would like to say that I really am encouraged that this council has seen where the city of Palm Bay and our southern most effort of our county, they do bring some really nice cultural events. And although there may be some issues with the grant application process, I'm encouraged to see that we'll be submitting more projects in for the city. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Donatus, do you have any comments for us today?
Nothing specifically other than just I'm excited to be a part of the group and just being the first meeting, just kind of taking it all in, but looking forward to hopefully getting to know each and every one of you. And again, anything I can contribute, in a positive manner is again my goal. And again, looking forward to working with you guys. And thank you for having me.
I thank you for all you do. I have granddaughters that play fast pitch softball, so I appreciate it greatly. Ms. Christie? Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Malone, sir.
Well, just another good meeting. I'm be getting off to TDC next month. It's been a challenging time. I want to congratulate the staff on doing an outstanding job helping us through this pandemic. And look at the numbers now coming out the back end. It's incredible. And that's a testament to, I think, the work that's been done for decades here on the Space Coast. So, yeah, bright times ahead and lessons learned, right, over the last 3 years through this pandemic. It's been amazing. But thankfully, we're coming out the other side pretty well.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for all your work you've done.
Pleasure.
Mr. Sword.
I echo Donnie's comments. Thanks for having me. Look forward to meeting everybody and working with all of you. That's it.
Thank you, sir, and you're my backyard, so I appreciate you. Mr. Winston.
Just a couple of updates, too, on cultural. Jazoo at the zoo, unfortunately, if you haven't bought tickets, is sold out. And buy them early next year. In mid-November, we actually are hosting an art exhibit. We commissioned 28 artists with the help of the Brevard Cultural Alliance to decorate surfboards, some from famous surfers. And they are spectacular, and the exhibit's called Bold Boards, Visions of Florida. So that will be on display all over the zoo starting in mid-November. We love to sort of enter into the arts where it makes sense for us. And then I think I can do this, just a shameless lobbying plug. What's coming up on elections, it's not for candidates, but for the Environmentally Endangered Land Program. I think I can speak to that.
Yeah.
And just say this is a program that's been quietly doing its work for 30 years. It's been on your taxes, protecting land up and down the county, and doing an incredible job managing it under the county leadership. So it's a great program. We've seen virtually, luckily, no objectors to it. Again, it quietly does its work, provides spaces for people up and down the county, in the north and the central and the south, and actually does so much for us because it takes land pressure off, and it's so pro-business. It only is from willing buyers, and so it doesn't restrict anything anyone here does with their land. So if you're on the fence and want to talk to me about it, I'll do my best to convince you to vote for it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Young.
No report.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kranis.
Nothing other than just welcome to the new members. If you stay a few minutes after, I'll cover a few things with you. But other than that, thank you very much for a great meeting today.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you for all you do. And with that, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Public comment?
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.